Hello, and welcome to our special Earth Day program today, Earth Day celebration. Today we have a special guest from MSC Cruises, and we have two different things that we'll be focusing on. We have the Ocean Cay Resort that they have just restored and rebirthed as a new island in the Caribbean. And we'll also be talking about the sustainability practices in general, and especially about decarbonization and the new fuels that are going to be available for the cruise ships. We're starting first with talking about the fuels and the sustainability of MSC, and then we will go into the island. Now, we want you to stay with us because we have a special Earth Day gift for each of you. And we're going to tell you at the very end of the program how you will go about asking for it, coming online and putting your address in so we can send it to you. So please do stick around for the entire program, and we'll go over that at the end. A couple of housekeeping notes. We're on Zoom now, and I think you're all familiar with Zoom, but for those of you who are not, you can see that there's a gallery view on the upper right-hand side of your screen, and if you click that, then you will be able to see both me and my guest, and also the presentation that we have. We also have a little short video on the island we don't want you to miss. And at the end, we will have questions and answers. And how you will be able to place your question and answer is by the Q&A button at the bottom. Don't put it in chat because we probably won't see it for the Q&A portion of it. If you do want to chat, go ahead. We have someone on our team who is answering those types of chats. But if you'd like to ask a question, please put it down at the bottom. So now I would like to introduce our guest. And our guest is Lyndon Koppel, Director of Sustainability for MSC Cruises. Lyndon has a solid background in environmental protection and sustainability, with experience both as a consultant and in the corporate environment. She worked on many diverse projects in Hong Kong and Southeast Asia. And in fact, she joined Cathay Pacific as a manager of environmental affairs in 2003. And in 2009, took up a position at Etihad Airways, initially as head of environment and then as head of sustainability for the Etihad Aviation Group. As Director of Sustainability, Lyndon aims to ensure that MSC Cruises grows in a sustainable way. Some of her initiatives at MSC has been to work with the executive chairman on Sustainable Advisory Board. She also managed the publication of the first MSC Cruises Sustainability Report, and she's currently involved in driving the decarbonization strategy of this line. So welcome, Lyndon.
Hello, Joyce. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon for you. Yes, exactly. Lyndon is coming to us today from Geneva, Switzerland. So we appreciate you being with us here this evening. So Lyndon, you have a very interesting background, diverse background, and I see that it goes back a long way. I'm wondering if you are a little bit further ahead, I would say, in the European community than we are in the United States in focusing on sustainability in a corporate way, from an early time. I mean, is that a correct assumption?
I think there's a lot of regulatory pressure in Europe, so that tends to be where there is a lot of focus. But I think things are generally kind of evening out, as we're looking at a lot of these issues from a global perspective, and certainly shipping is a perfect example of an industry that has to be looked at globally because we're operating all over the world and often in areas that are kind of open waters that aren't assigned to any country. So it's very important that, we view this as a global challenge that we need to address or opportunity, whichever way you want to look at it. So,
and it's a very good point because where we'd like to start in introducing MSC. There are people who are with us who are familiar with your line, and there are people who this may be brand new to them. And I know, especially in the United States, MSC has not been a brand here for that long. So why don't we load the slides right now so we can talk about who you are as a company. So please go ahead.
Great. Okay. Yeah. Well, MSC is Cruises is part of an overall MSC group of companies, founded in 1970. So we've been around 50 odd years, but it's primarily been in the cargo shipping and logistics side. It wasn't really until the 2000s that we started getting involved in the cruise industry, and that's when we started designing and building our own ships. And we've been very successful in building up what is now, I think the third largest cruise ship company globally, the largest in Europe, operating in Europe. But one of the interesting facts about the group is that we're a wholly privately owned company. We were set up and by Captain Aponte back in 1970, and he's still very much at the helm of the operations. You know, he's in the office every day. You see him in the canteen. He's there running the business. So I think that's a really interesting side of MSC, and quite an unusual one these days, to still have a business of this size that is still very much a family business.
I agree, and I think what's really impressive is that your cruise division really only has been since the 2000s, correct? So it's you've grown to the third largest by being involved half as long as far as in the cruising side of your work. So that's really impressive.
So, and in terms of just a little bit of a background of our ships, I mean, this is just from 2017. We have 18 ships operational or on our, operating now. Not, of course, with the COVID, but they're there. The last one that came into service was just delivered to us in the last few weeks, actually.
So tell us about that. So the luxury class, that is, I understand, what, 1,000 passengers?
Yes, yeah. Starting from 2023, we'll be launching a new luxury class, maximum around 1,000 passengers, and it's really kind of modelled on the yacht club that we have now on some of our larger ships, of some of our newer ships, and it's really been developed to really reflect the growth generally of the cruise industry, and the fact that, there are some passengers who are maybe kind of willing to pay more. They want to go to maybe some of the smaller places that our larger ships can't go to. So it's really a reflection of the fact that there's a lot more interest in the cruise industry than there has been in the past.
Now, I think those who really like the European style of MSC will appreciate that you're going into the luxury class. I think that's very interesting. And I may have stepped on something I think you were going to say about world class.
Yes, yeah. I mean, next year we'll take our first world class, which is a new class of ship. And the interesting thing about that is the fact that it will be operated using a completely different type of fuel and technology. And I think we'll probably be I'll talk a little bit more about our first world-class ship, Europa, when we start talking about that in a few minutes.
Okay, well, I think actually that might be coming up on our next slide, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to decarbonisation, which is really one of the environmental priorities right now of the shipping industry, it's really one that cannot be avoided. We really have to look at a two-pronged approach. And when we talk about decarbonisation, we're talking about reducing emissions. We burn fossil fuel, which has carbon dioxide as a result of that combustion process. But the challenge for the industry is the fact that we have existing ships, and then we have potentially new ships in the future. For our existing ships, which, ships have to last a long time, there's a high capital cost associated with them. Pre-COVID, a cruise ship was the average age, or the age of a cruise ship was around 40 years before end of life. That was about the longevity of a cruise ship. So we have to look at the fact that we have ships now that we have to really focus on the energy efficiency piece. That's really what's going to get us to meet some of these international goals and targets that the industry has set itself. The IMO, which is basically our global regulator, has set the industry intensity targets, basically meaning that we have to improve the efficiency of our ships. And this 40% target we have by 2030, we're a reasonable way there right now. We're at about 28%. We're reasonably confident we'll get there. But the challenge will be when we look at meeting absolute emissions targets. And the only way we can do that really is by looking at alternative fuels to the fossil fuels that we use now.
And I think in addition to that, having shore power, as it's called, cold ironing, will be more, I would say, prevalent I know that the Port of Miami has just made an announcement that we are going to have shore power. So that is very, very exciting. And that will end any of the emissions that can be seen right now from the cruise ships coming into the Port of Miami. I think it's both good for the environment as far as the air quality, but also very good for the cost savings as well.
Yes, absolutely. And all our new ships as standard are fitted with shore power capability. So we're ready. We have the infrastructure there to plug in as soon as that's available to us.
Mm-hmm.
But I mentioned earlier about the fact that we really need to we've got to look at our existing ships in terms of making them as efficient as we can. But when it comes to the future ships and to meet these expectations really globally from any industry to decarbonize or to reduce their emissions, their carbon dioxide emissions, we have to look at new types of fuel. At the moment, there's many different fuels that are being looked at. But what we have done is we've committed to LNG, which is still a fossil fuel. But the important thing about it is it does give us carbon dioxide reductions. It gives us massive reductions when it comes to what we would call our local pollutants, which is things like sulfur oxides and nitrogen oxides. They're the ones that are of more concern when you're in port, for example. Significant reductions in that. We know that being a fossil fuel, it's not the ultimate answer, but it's a fuel that's available now, and we see it as a good stepping stone once that technology starts to become available. It's an extremely complex industry. We're working with very complex ships. And at the moment, despite things that we might hear, there aren't actually zero emissions fuel commercially available for our ships. We wish there were, but they're simply not available right now. So we are having to take steps to make sure that we're ready, working in partnership, making these things happen by looking at the whole value chain and the whole supply chain.
And I know you're going to LNG, that's a huge commitment, but there also are other things that you're experimenting with and other cruise lines are experimenting with. There's biofuels, fuel cell technology, renewables, in addition to LNG, which I think is going to bring us to the next slide here.
Yeah, I mean, I've just given some, I've talked about these a little bit, but the energy efficiency piece, one of the things that's people find particularly interesting, I don't think that there's a kind of realization that once you get a ship, it doesn't mean to say that you operate it in the same way all the time. You get a ship, you're always finding ways to improve. We want it to, at the very minimum, meet its design standards. A bit like when you buy a car and you hear how efficient it is, but are you then driving it as efficiently as you can do? Well, this is what we need to do with our ships. We need to continually, every single minute that it's operating, be checking how it's working against how it should be operating. So we have this kind of digital twin ship concept where we can look at all the data, look at it with our shore-based teams, and then feed information back continually to the ship to ask them to tweak various aspects. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we do have those new technologies like the fuel cell technology. That's a very new thing. It's not a battery. It's not a storage. It's not a storage device. It's actually a device that actually can take things like hydrogen and LNG, and actually, instead of a propeller traditional engine, you're actually using a different type of technology to create that power that's needed. Batteries are important. People talk about batteries a lot, but at the moment, they still have got a way to go to be able to use them on large scale, heavy, power heavy or energy heavy devices, but it's certainly not off the table, and we're certainly still looking at it.
It's interesting. I have an electric car, and I find sometimes that the naysayers will tell me, yes, but how much energy is that taking to actually power your electric, to power your car? So there's ultimately down the road, I would love to have a solar power on our house so that we'd be able to draw down from solar to fill the car. That would be, a good next step. But as I've said, it's one step at a time, one baby step at a time. And I think with the energy, with the cruise lines and the airlines as well, for that matter, and you come from the airline industry, it's you try. And when people complain and say, well, gee, that's not good enough. Yes, but it's better than what we had. And we're getting there, right? It's like one step at a time.
Yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey. We haven't got the solutions tomorrow. No matter what people say that there is technology available, it isn't commercially available. There might be some small, but we're working on small scale tests. We're working on lab scale programs with various partners, as well as looking at actually trialing them on the ships themselves. So there is a lot going on, but we have to make sure that ultimately we're making the right decisions. We can't commit to, $1 billion ship that's got to last us 30 to 40 years without being absolutely sure that we've got the technology right on that ship.
Well, and let's remember where we came from. I mean, those of us who have been in the industry for a long time do remember, when it was dark black smoke that was coming out of those smokestacks on the ships, not today, which is much refined. And that's from using, better fuel. But I remember being on a deck many years ago, now 20 years ago, longer, not lately, and you'd be showered with these little specks, but sitting out by the pool because it was coming out of the stacks. We have come so far from that, both on ships and in factories and everywhere. So, we are moving ahead, very much.
Yeah. And then the final point there is just about the fact that we, and I've said it before, we have to work together. We might be competitors commercially, but we're always chatting to each other. There's lots of different forums where all the shipping companies will get together, all the cruise ship companies, because we know we have to collaborate in order to find these solutions.
That's right. And that's what I found actually that happens when we've had different guests on our program, say from two different areas. They learn from each other because they don't get a chance sometimes to speak to each other. I mean, the conferences where you all get together would probably be the next best idea.
Yeah.
Well, so let's change gears here now, because I know a lot of people are interested in Ocean Cay, and I'm pronouncing that correctly, yes? Cay.
Yes.
And this is a revitalization of what was a sand extraction site in the Bahamas into a marine reserve. So we're going to queue up a short video right now, a 2-minute video, so that you can get a sense of how did this start and what went into the work involved here.
It's taken an army of people to convert this from what was an industrial island.
Having put these rocks in, the lobsters are everywhere.
This is going to be a very unique site for avian species. Oh my God, there's an owl. It's quite exciting to see him here again.
There is a global problem facing reefs. There are reefs here. They're clearly in decline and suffering pretty severely. Let's try and do something about it.
There's a lot of transplants, a lot of fish, lobster. Coral's looking healthy, general environment good, so good work.
There's a chance that we're going to have a healthy colony again. It's pretty awesome.
Something that the world can really look at us and set the example.
We can make a difference with these areas. Big topic of conversation was conch. Another one was seagrass and how important these items are for the environment, for the Bahamas. It's really needing our help.
We are a family company that live for the ocean. We live by the ocean. That's what feeds us every day. Let's make this marine reserve something unique. Let's do it together.
I'm excited for the transformation.
And I can't wait to see what it's going to be in the future.
And really bring the marine life back to a place that was industrialized with aragonite mining.
The more debris we take, more we are cleaning the sea.
Oh, look at the color of the water. It's beautiful.
This is what people expect.
Those 5,500 guests will have the time of their life.
This is something that has never been done before.
Wow, that's impressive. I don't know of anyone else that's taken the private island concept and making it into a marine reserve. I mean, truly, I'm impressed. And he mentioned the color of the water. You can see the difference. I mean, it's just sapphire. It's so beautiful. And I know you've got a picture in here that shows what it looked like when you first acquired it. It's you've done it.
Yeah, and it is amazing. I mean, every time I watch that video, I just kind of reminds me of what we've managed to achieve there, you know. But I think just to kind of set it up, I mean, just from more of a kind of commercial perspective, we've ended up with this beautiful island destination, 8 beaches, over 2 miles of beautiful white sand. It is a facility that is exclusive for our cruise ship guests. It's the fact that it's close to Miami, which means that our guests can stay late into the night, and we have an amazing lighthouse show that comes on in the evening when it gets dark. So it does really give people a proper kind of full day. You know, they're not rushing off at kind of 5 or 6 o'clock. We can stay till 11 o'clock midnight. You know, and those waters. I mean, I'd never been to the Caribbean before. I started going when we were doing the construction of this, and I'm astounded by the color of the water there. It's something I've never ever seen before in my life. You know.
Mm-hmm. It's great. You mentioned about the nighttime. There is a video on YouTube that I found that shows the island at night, because you've already had pre-COVID some passengers that have had a chance to experience the island, and it looks absolutely magical. I mean, it's not what we get to do often, is be on a deserted Caribbean island at night. Usually the ships pull away before the sunset. So what an interesting and unusual opportunity. And for anybody that wants to have a private party, what fun.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But I mean, this is just a reminder, and we mentioned it in the video, that it absolutely wasn't like that when we took this island over. It was a heavily industrialized facility, lots of contamination of the sand, thousands of tons of scrap metal, both on the island itself, buried, some on top of it, a lot in the waters around it. We had to work with many different experts, and you saw some of them there, planting many thousands of trees and shrubs, really trying to look at ones that are indigenous to the area, and also removing some non-indigenous invasive plants from there, because in order to make sure that we got the biodiversity back that we wanted, we had landscape experts in biodiversity and avian experts, etc. And it's also
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, it's also what we've had to make it as well, and what we chose to make it is very self-sufficient. We have a desalination facility, so we can take the seawater, make that into the water for drinking. We have an advanced wastewater treatment system, so it takes all the wastewater from the island, that treated to a very high standard before it's then discharged to the sea. Solar panels, which provide a lot of the energy needs for the island. We have about 120 people who are living there permanently, and we also have a ban of single-use plastic. So there's a lot of good environmental attributes, aside from the fact that we'll go on to talk about this whole biodiversity piece as well.
Well, so now you tell me it's self-sustaining. Now I know where I'm going to run to if I ever have to leave Miami in a hurry. I will go hole up on Ocean Cay. I also wanted to just ask, I mean, the Bahamian government, I'm sure, were very pleased with what you did. I mean, it looks like they were, involved, as well as helping to, watch over and make sure that everything was to their environmental, standards as well. So really give kudos to that. And I'm sure they're encouraging others to do the same.
Yeah. I mean, I know that we're certainly very pleased with us, because I mean, effectively, we've done a massive and frankly speaking, very expensive cleanup operation. We've made it into said what was heavily industrial to now back as it used to be, and better, I think. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, and this. We're working with them on this marine reserve area. We're looking to get that actually, the kind of in principle approved as a marine protected zone. So I mean, there's lots of things we're collaborating with them on.
And by the way, this slide here, I actually asked if Lyndon would focus on a little bit of this because it was one of my thoughts, and I'm sure it didn't escape a lot of other people to say, okay, this is a beautiful, environmentally appropriate island, and it's a reserve, and you're bringing cruise passengers there on a regular basis. How are you going to manage to protect it going forward? What are you doing differently?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we haven't developed it in the same way that a lot of other islands are developed, and we really promote with our passengers, there's information for them before they go ashore, explaining the, environmental credentials that we have and how seriously we take that. So they're very aware of that before they enter the island. Mm-hmm. And then we sell what's called a reef-friendly sunscreen that we encourage our guests to use. We've done some great things with the furniture there, which is really, it's really shown to be very resilient, this furniture. It's actually called polywood. It's made from recycled milk bottles and aluminium. It's lasting really well. Apparently, everyone's really happy with it out there. And then we have local vendors from the Bahamas that come in to sell things that they've made. So we have specifics. So a lot of the shops are around, selling local products, which is great. And then we have the spa facilities there, which, as you can see, it looks amazing, but all their products are all environmentally friendly. So, we've made a big effort to look at the small things as well as the kind of bigger issues. It really has been a case of every single item, product, service, sustainability is in mind.
Mm. Now, another review that I read said that there were 8 white sand beaches.
Yeah, that's right.
Beautiful. Yeah. So it's really more, you're encouraging passengers to experience an island environment, not a theme park. You really want people to understand what a Bahamian island is like.
Yeah. We don't have anything like the theme parks, and it's, as I said, when people get off, they have the opportunity to walk, to go and see different areas, but it's all centered around having that tranquil experience.
Tranquil, that's a good word. I like that.
And then this single-use plastic, this is something that we've made commitments to on our ships, trying to significantly reduce our single-use plastic. And it was clear on this island we had to make it zero-use plastic on the island. We encourage people to have their own water bottles, and they can buy these nice ones as mementos as well and use them on the island. There's lots of water dispensers around, so they can help themselves to water wherever. Things like biodegradable straws, but also we have this food truck concept, which is really cool, where we have these trucks dotted about. People can go and order snacks, etc., and all that is served using cutlery and plates like we're showing here. These are biodegradable cutlery, it's bamboo plates. So we've thought of everything, in terms of making sure that we're not creating unnecessary waste, in that way.
And I think the food trucks too, from what I read, also disperse people, so that you get a quick bite in anywhere on the island. You don't have to line up to go to a large food outlet. You really have separated so that people do get the sense of being on that tranquil private island.
Yeah, I think that's important because our largest ships, you're talking about 5,500, 6,000 people, and I think one of the concerns is that it gets very busy, but actually it's, talking to people there, people very quickly spread out. And as you say, they don't need to be focused on any particular point on the island. We're deliberately encouraging people to explore every corner of it.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Now, this is a part, the marine biodiversity, that I just, I'm so impressed by, that you care about what's going on under the water as much as you care about what's going on your island, and to take care of your guests. This is rather important. So I would like to hear more about this.
Yeah, and I should say to start with, this comes back to the fact that being a family company who care about the sea, who genuinely care about the sea, and this is, for me, this is simply a reflection of the family's desires for this island. It really is front and center of the reason why we're doing this. We did ecological assessments to start with before we started doing the bulk of the kind of construction work there, because a lot of work needed to be done. And because of that, we did these assessments which allowed us to identify some corals that needed to be moved that weren't going to be affected by the construction. And so they were moved by experts. We had teams of people in, we ran workshops, we got involved with the local communities, and we do have plans to actually establish on the island. We have a place that we've assigned where we're going to have an actual coral education centre, and it will work together with the Bohemian universities as well as educate our guests and visitors. But it's not just about the cruise guests, it's also about getting people locally engaged in this as well. So, and you know, this coral, it's not just because it was an industrial facility that we've had issues. It's generally also because of climate change, and primarily because of that. You know, climate change, the hotter temperatures, and it's killing a lot of the corals. So I mean, it's looking at tracking and looking at what we can potentially do to support efforts to protect the corals in the future.
And it's good for people to know that it can be regenerative. I know I've gone to the Rosenstiel School here in Miami with the University of Miami, and I've watched them, grow coral, in their facility. And what they're doing is they're regenerating coral all over, and it's so possible. I mean, we can make a difference here. It's not like because it's gone forever. We can bring it back, and once we bring it back, then we bring back the fish and all of the sea life. Not unlike plant a butterfly plant in your yard, and very soon butterflies will just find it. And so it's that kind of a theory that plant it and they will come.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what's happened here. I mean, the people, there was a few seconds of one of the guys on that video just saying quickly about the number of lobsters, just because we put those rocks in. We created an ecosystem for them, just by certain things that we've done on the island, and suddenly it's almost within days.
Yeah.
You just don't understand, do you, how that can happen? It is amazing. And the birds, I mean, how do they know that suddenly this island is now a wonderful place for them to be?
Speaking of birds.
Good. Yeah, so I mean, one thing we've committed to is surveys and monitoring from both the sea side of things with the coral and the fish and everything, and also the avian. Unfortunately, we were very limited in 2020 with COVID. The Bahamas effectively shut down, and we weren't allowed to have people come into the island. Fortunately, we have some kind of amateur experts on the island anyway, so they were able to track, and we're actually I've actually kind of been talking to them quite a lot, and they've actually made a pretty good job of keeping an eye on how it's going and done their own avian monitoring reports and been able to produce them. And they're amazed and staggered by what's going on there, and the number of both resident birds are now seeing, and also a lot of migratory visitors. And we're looking at birds of prey, ospreys, to numerous seabirds, shorebirds. Incredible.
Yeah, and I think you planted something like 50,000 trees there. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I'm getting different numbers. But I mean, there's an awful lot. I mean, they take time to establish, and we know that. But I think we're having significant success already. There was a little bit of a wetland area there already, which had some plants. So we have that kind of area, and that's flourishing. That's one of the areas we had to take away some of those non-indigenous species to allow the indigenous ones to flourish. Plus, we've done extensive amounts of planting as well.
Great. Really great. So I guess that's Ocean Cay. Really, I totally appreciate you telling us all about this. I mean, what we're going to do now is, before we go to questions and answers, I would like to point out here, and I know this is not a commercial broadcast as such, but there are meeting planners who are on the viewer and our viewership who might like to know that if you were to charter an MSC vessel, that you also get the private island chartered as well. So what a nice event for a corporation to have their own ship. You can see us in the background there, and then have your own island for all kinds of events and parties. So it's very nice for all of our meeting planners to know about that. So let's go to questions and answers right now and see what we have for Q&A. I have First of all, I'm willing to bet some people put some things in chat. Okay. Oh, good. People are interested in environment. That's really nice. Thank you. So you mentioned that you have a lot of sustainable products that you're advocating on board the ship, as far as non-plastics and bringing your own water bottle and such. Are you actually educating the passengers about this? Do you educate them in advance? Do they get to know something when they're there? How do they experience this as a difference?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of touch points with guests, and I think it's always something we're working to try and improve in terms of getting them aware of the sort of things we're doing. We're starting now to do much more on the ships themselves, so they're very aware of the kind of efforts really that we're putting in. I think having that first sustainability report gave our marketing teams a lot of the material that they needed, to try and then disseminate this amongst the guests. And certainly before they go to places like Ocean Cay, we try and make them as familiar as possible with the island, and so that they're really going to the island with a real sense of appreciation,
Yeah, that's key, I think, because there are people who really have not been introduced to sustainability at all, and there will be those that will be on your ships, and then there are those that choose MSC because of your sustainable policies. So we're going to find everything in between, and I think what we're finding actually is the younger generation, millennials, are very much looking at value-based purchasing in their travel choices. And so here's an option for them to, be on a large ship and still experience all the benefits of the activities and entertainment and such, and also feel like they're, doing their part, at least doing what they can do.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. So the last question I have here, and then we're going to actually close the program and get to our special gift for everyone. Are all of the cruise lines as focused on sustainable fuel sources as MSC, from what you can see?
Yes, I mean, we're very much aware as an industry that this is a priority for us. I alluded earlier to the fact that we're willing to. This is something we're very willing to collaborate on as an industry. So yes, I mean, in order to get those decisions right, we need to work collaboratively. At the very least, things like practical reasons, like economies of scale, for example. I mean, it's not going to be any good to us if we decide on a particular type of fuel and we're the only ones that want it or need it, because then the supply just won't be there. So it's really important that we make those decisions really as an industry to say what sort of fuel can work for us, what kind of technology, so that we can then send those messages out and make sure that we have that supply chain in place. So yeah, absolutely. Collaboration, partnership in this is absolutely essential.
I totally agree. So Lyndon, thank you so much for being with us. I mean, we appreciate all of your input. We appreciate you being with us in your evening in Geneva, and for providing this really top level view of MSC sustainability and giving us this wonderful glimpse of Ocean Cay. I've not been there. No, I don't think hardly anybody's been there yet, because COVID put interruption to that. And I'm sure it also gave the island some time to grow those 50,000 trees that you've put there, to start building up a nice shade base. And you've been doing a lot of work there behind the scenes. So we all look forward to getting over there and getting to see it, and really want to thank you for being here on Earth Day, especially.
Great. Thank you very much, Joyce. I've really enjoyed being with you. Thank you.
Thank you. So speaking of Earth Day, now's the time to talk about our special gift. And I actually have been wearing the gift, not that you can see it because it's underneath here. We have come to the conclusion that there's a possibility that masks are going to become a real problem in the water, once the cruise industry starts up again. Not because anybody wants to, and not because of anything that they're doing wrong, but just because if you're up on the deck and you take your mask off to have a drink of water or have a cocktail, that mask is now dangling or sitting in your pocket or maybe blowing over, and is becoming problematic. Anyway, without the cruise industry back in gear again, just masks that are finding themselves in the water. And so we wanted to do something about it. So we developed and had these designed for us, which are called mask keepers that snap onto any mask. And these say, be sustainable on one side, and it says sustainable ships on the other. So we would very much like to send one of these to anyone who has signed up today, registered for our program. And here's how you do it. You go to sustainableships.com and you put your name in the Contact Us form, give us your email address, and in the message section, just tell us your address that you'd like to have this sent, and we will be happy to get that to you free of charge. And we would love for you to use it when you're out on the water, when you're in the breeze, when you really want to make sure you're protected. And I tell you, they really do work. They don't go anywhere. So I've been in very high winds with these on bridges and such. And, I find it gives me a sense of comfort, to have my mask always right here and not have to go searching for it when I need it. And we are going to be having masks for a while. So this is something that we'll be living with. I don't see that going away anytime soon. So the industry will come back and masks will come along with them. And we have to learn how to work with it and work within the environment so that we can all stay safe and keep the water nice and clean. So, a little plug, these are also available in bulk. So if you want to let us know, if you'd like to have your own logo put on them, then we'd be happy to facilitate that. Just let us know. So thank you for being with us today. We really appreciate you taking time out of your Earth Day, your own Earth Day celebrations, to be with us and MSC Cruises. And have a good Earth Day. Do something today. Pick up something from the street, trash, whatever. Do a little bit of something extra. Go a little bit out of your way to help just protect our environment. It's a good day to do that, and we can carry that on in our lives. So stay with us on our sustainableships.com website, and we will make sure to let you know when we have our next live cast and what the topic of it will be. And you can always contact us whenever you'd like. And be sustainable. Thank you for being here.